What it do, y'all, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am here to bring you guys my top 10 powder bronzers. Recently, I featured a video on my channel talking about my top 10 cream bronzers, and I'm gonna go ahead and have that video linked down below, as well as my bronzer hunt playlist. That is basically a series that I have been doing for the beginning of my channel, where basically I just showcase me applying a bronzer onto my skin tone so you can see how it works. And at one point I was also doing wear tests as well. But for this video, I'm going to be focusing in on powder bronzers. As I did with the cream video, this will be encompassing both new and old powder bronzers. I did a better job this time making sure to look at all of the sections that I have bronzer in. I did miss a cream bronzer, unfortunately, for my top 10. There is a bronzer that I've actually really been enjoying and I just completely spaced. So I will need to talk to you guys about that at some point in some video. I'll throw that in there so you guys know. But yeah, let's just go ahead and dive into these 10 bronzers because I'm sure I'm gonna ramble a lot about them and it's gonna end up being a long video. First things first, one of the newer bronzers that I picked up is this baby right here. This is from MAC. This is in the shade Richer Golden. This is in a matte finish. And as you can see, it is clearly darker than me. For any of these bronzers that I have videos, shorts, anything like that, I will have the video linked down below so it's easier for you to see the product literally applied to my skin. This is a very matte formula, which isn't a bad thing. It's just unique for me to actually enjoy it. And I think the reason that I really enjoy this particular bronzer is because of the undertone. It has that yellow-based undertone, and I've really grown into understanding my undertone this year and knowing that if I can find something that has more of a yellow-based undertone, I'm going to love it. So that is why this is definitely one of my top 10 bronzers. I will say if this had a bit of a sheen, I would have loved it. And I do know that they have the sheen-ish range or more of a satin range, but that range, at least from the undertone descriptions, none of those bronzers had a yellow base. And because I know this opinion about myself now, I'm trying not to pick up bronzers just to pick them up unless they literally fit the kind of criteria that I have for a bronzer in general. Next is an older one, and this is from House Labs. This is in the shade Deep Level 11, and I feel like this was one of the first bronzers that really taught me that I love an interesting kind of base. So it is the second swatch, as you can see, and this one does pull a little bit warmer than the MAC, and it's also lighter than the MAC. But I find that this has enough warmth and enough yellowness to it that it works. And what I love about this formula is that because it's not a straight up like powder, it's more of that baked gelée, it pulls a little bit more skin-like on my complexion. And because I tend to reach for more like skin-like foundations, more tinted moisturizers, medium coverage, stuff like that, this just works a little bit better with my foundations, whereas the MAC kind of sets it. I wouldn't say it's a flat matte, but it's a flatter matte than the House. And so I definitely would reach for this over this, but these are two both great formulas. All of these are great formulas, and as I did with the cream, I'm going to give you guys a variety of different textures, all matte of course, or all powder of course, but different textures nonetheless, so that if you like something that's straight up matte, more satiny, more baked gelée, you got some options. Another straight up powder that is older is of course the Fenty Beauty Sun Stalker. Now this is a straight up matte, like there is no ifs, ands, or buts. As you can see, I definitely have gotten some use out of this throughout the years of it being in my collection, and this is in the shade Mocha Mommy. I definitely do think that this is a beautiful formula, but like I said, it's a straight up matte, and you also have to be comfortable with the undertone. There's definitely no yellow to this. This is definitely more of a straight up red orange type situation with brown in it, and I can deal with it and I like it, so I'm not mad at it. But as I've grown once again to knowing better and understanding my undertones, this has not been as much of a reach for me. But I still do really enjoy the formula, and I have heard really good things with people who have extremely lighter complexions, and then of course darker complexions, at least being able to find something that works for them in this range. So that's another reason why I really wanted to shout this range out, because in the event that you are extremely lighter than me or extremely darker than me, really check out this range. I've heard from, you know, people who are on social media and then people who are off, that this is a great range to at least find a bronzer, especially if you're okay with the bronzer being matte. Auntie Pat came out with a bronzer range, and I picked up the shade Burnished Honey. Now this is one that once again I recently picked up, and I featured this in a short very recently. Like, it should be towards the top of my shorts feature. What I will say is that this, I feel, is an interesting undertone. I do like it, and I do think this is the best option for me. I will say I feel like this is a little bit more orange than just a straight up yellow like this baby here, which is the House. I think that it has a little bit more of an orange there too. So it's a kind of a mix, in my opinion, of orange and yellow. Just follow me. It does give a little bit of depth, definitely not a lot, but there is a little bit of depth and there is a little bit of dimension built with this. If I had gone with a deeper shade, I felt like it was just not going to be the undertone that I would be satisfied with, whereas I am satisfied with this. As for the finish, I would say that this is a matte finish, but it's not a hard matte. It's not like a 2017 liquid lipstick matte. It's like, you know, a 2023 liquid matte, right? It's more of that moussey finish where, yeah, it's a matte finish, but it doesn't look so apparent if some of the other products on your face are not matte as well. So I've really enjoyed this so far. I've worn this quite a few times, and I definitely would say pick out a shade in this range if you are interested. But as always, wait for a sale. And if no brand in this list you wait for a sale, wait for a sale. They do 40, 30% off at least once a season. Wait for the sale. Please wait for the sale. Another expensive bronzer that I have that I've actually really enjoyed is from Charlotte Tilbury. This is her airbrushed bronzer. I have this in the shade 4. So with her bronzer range, I showcased her cream bronzers in the video. I think I posted that last week. In the powder, you actually have to go a shade up. So do keep that in mind. Unfortunately, that means that since this is the darkest shade, the powder range is not as diverse and inclusive as the cream range. But what I will say is I love this formula. It's a beautiful airbrushed finish. It does give that matte appearance because it quite literally is a matte, but because the powder is just so smooth and soft, I find that on the skin, once again, it's not that harsh matte finish or look. It doesn't appear to be dry. You know, it's matte, but it doesn't appear to be dry and just 2017 matte liquid lipstick. I don't really know what to say. It's a really good formula. Now, it is quite red, but because there is a depth to it compared to my skin tone, I found that it just worked as a general bronzer and not as a straight up red streak, which I do appreciate, especially in my older age and my knowledge now of my undertone. So yeah, I'm really liking this, and I would highly recommend it. It does have a hole in the back because this is refillable, which is nice. It is going to take some time to refill this, as does, I said, the bigger Charlotte Tilbury. I feel like her products at least appear to be, you know, quite a lot of product in there, but this one has less than 1 ounce. It has 16 grams, which I feel like is quite a bit of product. So yeah, just keep that in mind. At least in this one, you have a little bit of sustainability element to it in the event that that is very important to you. And like I said, that is definitely a matte, but it truly does look, and I don't know if I would say feel, but it definitely looks more like an airbrushed finish where it's not going to really be apparent where you started or where you stopped. And all of these formulas, I haven't really said, are quite good for beginners. They're not a affordable for beginners, but they're good for beginners. I would say the one that would be a little harsh if you were a beginner is probably the Fenty, because it is so dry and so matte that it's a little bit less forgiving than some of these other formulas. So keep that in mind. An affordable bronzer that I would highly recommend in my top 10, and is of course, once again, a little bit more forgiving for beginners, is this Juvia's Place one. I love that they give you 2 different shades. So if you are like anybody and you go out in the sun during the summer and you want something that's a little bit more red based, a little bit more deeper, you definitely have this shade. And then in the winter, you have a different shade for, you know, when it's less. For me, I actually have to blend these 2 shades together to get a shade that works for me. Otherwise, I think that the shade on the bottom is just a tinge bit too it's a tinge bit too red in my opinion, and the shade up top is just too light on my skin tone and you're really not going to see it. So I predominantly use this shade, but I put a dash of this on top just to help it kind of blend in a little bit better. And yeah, I really do like this formula. It is a very easy, effortless formula, and I would definitely recommend it. And especially because if you're a beginner, it's blendable, it's affordable. There is quite a bit of product in here as well. This one has 32.4 grams of product. So she's killing Charlotte right now. She's killing her. And you can really get this on sale as well. Like, there is no reason to ever pay for Juvia's Place full price. They're not as out there with their sales, but they do some good sales. You just have to find it at the right moment. I think right now, they literally have like pink blushes or pink products in general on their site are all like 30% off. So like, you got to just kind of be prepared to pull the trigger when you want to pull the trigger. Next is one, I don't know if this is available, but in general, I find that Makeup Revolution does some pretty good powder bronzers. This one happens to be from their Pro range, and this is in the shade Sculpting Bronze. No, that's the product name. The shade is in Robe. I really love this bronzer. This one is one, because it's in a quite very embossed product or design, you really do need to build it up. I don't even know if you guys can see it on my skin. I might not have built it up enough. It's this right here. So you really need to build it up, which I appreciate sometimes, because sometimes you don't want something that is like fully opaque, and that might be you. I find that, like I said, because this is a hard enough pressing, you get to dig into the formula, dig into the product to really build it up. It is a kind of effortless blend, an effortless build, and it is a redder undertone too. So if that is something that you want or you appreciate, definitely would recommend it. I will say, just in general, I find that it is harder to get a yellow based undertone for a drugstore brand, whether powder or cream. And I believe I mentioned that in the cream video. So I unfortunately don't have any to show you guys yellow based undertone from a drugstore brand, but I am always down to hunt for it. Always. Next is one that I just have to shout it out because it's such a classic range, and we finally have a shade for darker complexions. So this is the NARS matte version of their bronzer, and this is in the shade Quirimba. I was very skeptical of this, and even in swatch, I find that, like, if you did not know me and trust me over the years, you would probably think that I'm lying to you, because this still does not look like it's going to do nothing on my skin. But I'm telling you, this gives such a beautiful, subtle beat to the bronze section that I love it. Now, it does have a warmer undertone, so it is going to be leaning more on that orangey red, not as apparently red though. So it has a beautiful kind of seamless finish. It's not going to look airbrushed. It definitely is a little bit matter, but this is once again a smooth powder, so it's going to be closer to the Charlotte Tilbury than any other bronzer here, because it has that silky finish to it. I really like it. Yes, it says matte, and it is matte because there's no shimmer in this particular formula, but it gives you a little something. It gives you a little wiggle room in the event that you don't want a straight up matte and you want something that just looks a little bit more seamless to go with your blush, highlighter, foundation, and your powder. Okay, the last two are pretty much the same product, just different colors and different formulations. So these are the Kosas bronzer. In my opinion, this is the best if you want something that's a little bit more satiny in the range. I do have like highlighters that I used when I really wanted something that was like straight up shimmery. I don't really recommend that anymore, but in the event that you want something a little bit more than just a satin sheen, that would be the route that I would go, especially if you were my skin tone. So this is of their older formula, which is in the shade Deep, and this is from their newer formula in the shade Tropic. And these formulas to me are the exact same. I know a lot of people had issues with the formula going bad, smelling bad, all of that. That was never an issue for me, so that's why I still have my old one. And what I would say is if you are my skin tone, like literally a skin tone twin, I would, can you guys see? So if you are a shade twin to me, what I would recommend is actually to go for the shade before Tropic. Tropic is quite literally a contour, which is interesting to have a more satiny sheen contour. It's never something I thought I would have, but now I do. Whereas the shade before it is going to be pretty much this shade, which is a nice bronzer. This gives you a very, very beautiful skin-like satiny sheen to the cheeks and wherever you put your bronzer. I have no problems with smell at all. None with this one, and because I have just naturally used this enough, it's aired out. Granted, if I put my nose to it, I can still smell the like old smell that people hated, but to me, I'm not dying from it, so it's perfectly fine. I really love this formula. This is one of my favorite formulas. If I want to glow everywhere, I will reach for this because it will continue to allow me to glow. And so yeah, I think that's it. That's it. That's all I got for these bronzers. Like I said, I will have the links down below, and I hope this was a good variety. I tried my best to be authentic to me and like what are the top 10 bronzers. If I had to pick them up again, these would be them. These would be the bronzers that I pick up, honestly, excluding this one. I really did not need this one, but I like it. It's there, and it's just the formula. So maybe I deserve to bring one other formula to the mix because this is technically one formula, right? I can't just leave y'all hanging like that. I know which one I'm gonna pick. I know exactly which one I'm gonna pick. Okay, so the last formula that I'm truly gonna pick, and this will be 10 different formulas that I talk about, is the Sigma one. This is a solid bronzer, and I feel like a lot of people sleep on Sigma's makeup because that is not really where they started, and understandably so. I've always been vocal on like brands needing to stick to what they know, what they started with, but what I will say is Sigma has really had me change. This is a beautiful natural bronzer. For me, it's not overly red, it's not overly orange, it's not even truly, it's just a neutral brown with some warmth and adds some depth in the perimeters of my face. And it blends beautifully. This is another formula that is quite silky, smooth, very well blended, and so it's going to be in that realm of the NARS and the Charlotte Tilbury where it's going to look effortless. It's going to look somewhat airbrushed, if not airbrushed, because it is quite a beautifully blended formula. So I would highly recommend this one as well, and I'm so happy I really sat down and said let's add a 10th formula because otherwise that one wouldn't have been recognized. And I know y'all are here for the bronzers just like I am. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys on Monday for my latest video and my new makeup releases. Bye guys.